Salut, hello. It's American jazz saxophonist and composer Kirk Whalum. From Memphis, Tennessee, a place that I think you may be familiar with a little thing called soul music. You are watching me here on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy yourself. C'est un vrai plaisir pour moi. À tout à l'heure. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'd like to feature BWB. Rick Braun, Norman Brown. And because this is a very special song written by a very special person who we lost, who was an amazing bass player. His name was Wayman Tisdale. I would like to also feature an amazing bass player by the name of Gerald Veasley. Ladies and gentlemen, Sunday's Best.
Well, that particular video track there is a track called Sunday's Best. And to be honest, you could pick any day of the week because it's the best on a Friday, a Saturday, a Wednesday, a Monday. It really doesn't matter. It's an excellent track from the 2015 recording in Brooklyn, New York. It is a fabulous track, and we're so very, very honored to have the man himself sat in our studio ready for the Jazz Across the Pond, another great interview. Ladies and gentlemen, our artist tonight, born in Memphis, Tennessee, is an American jazz saxophonist and a songwriter, and much, much, much more. He toured with Whitney Houston for more than 7 years and soloed on her single, I Will Always Love You, the best-selling single by a female artist in history. He's also featured on many of the late, great Luther Vandross's albums. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join Kevin and myself, Jazz Across the Pond, as we extend a very, very warm welcome to the man himself, the incredible Kirk Whalum.
Well, wow, what a joy. And I have to, I normally try to be a pretty humble guy, but today I'm going to start by tooting my own horn just a little. First of all, today is my birthday.
Whoa!
Hey, happy birthday.
Shall we sing? Roger, shall we sing?
No.
Let me get my clarinet. Wait a minute.
Right. Yeah, please don't. Yeah, so the other part of my birthday gift, you guys are number one. Number two is going to be to see the Minions movie. Okay, so then I'll be set. But the other thing I'll say to toot my own horn, and then I'm done with self-promotion, and that is that the song you mentioned, Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, the saxophone solo that I played just sort of as a matter of course on that tour, we had a stop that had to do with a particular movie she was doing. We didn't know a lot about it. We got there on set, realized that she had insisted that we be there because she wanted to sing the song live to the film. And with her band playing live, and all these are things that are not done in the movie industry. But apparently she just didn't know that, and she gave an ultimatum: either we do it like this or we're not going to do the song. So there we were, and now I get to say here with you internationally that the solo I played on that song is the sax solo that's been heard by more people than any other sax solo in recorded history.
It's amazing.
Well,
amazing.
I think we should salute you for that. I mean, that is just unbelievable. Well, I want to come.
I know you'll go back to that later. I just want to mention that it is still that I have a hard time believing, but go right ahead, man.
Wow, that is what a way to start an interview. Yes, you're absolutely right. I want to go back and allude back to that fabulous. I don't want to just gloss over it. We don't like to do that. So let's take Kirk. Would you please tell us and our followers more about your childhood in Memphis, Tennessee? Did you come from a musical family, and where did your love of jazz come from?
Yes, and yes. I just got a birthday.
Now my question.
Right. Yeah. I just got a birthday visit from my nephew Cameron, and so the quick summation of where we find ourselves in 2022 as Whalums is that I'll get someone that says to me, "Oh, hey, aren't you?" And I'm like already prepared to receive some sort of nice accolade. And they go, "Aren't you Cameron Whalum's uncle? Or aren't you Kyle Whalum's dad? Kenneth Whalum's." So
yeah, Whalum's nephew.
not that because in this sort of globe, I guess social media driven reality, I mean, those kids have millions of followers, because of Bruno Mars, because of in my son's case, Kelly Clarkson, Katy Perry, and my nephew Kenneth. Those people are like, "Oh yeah, who are you with your little 100,000 followers?" So it really is the product of some people named Whalum who preceded us. And you're right, Uncle Peanuts was the avatar for all of us, except that his brother Wendell was Dean of Music at Morehouse College. And people who know anything at all about American history, and when I say American history, I'm talking about all of it, not just the part that, white folks are comfortable with or whatever.
Right.
But they know that Morehouse College is the place where Martin Luther King went to college, and so many other luminaries. And it was an all men's, pretty much all black college. And so my uncle was Dean of Music, the Morehouse Glee Club. They sang at all the inaugurations, etc. My grandmother was an incredible pianist, organist. She played pipe organ. She did the whole, Pachelbel, Bach, Mozart, all of that.
Right.
My other grandmother was a domestic and you know, we used to say maid, and of course we were all, you know, pretty ashamed of that, right? Until we had enough, we lived long enough to understand that she was a hero, and that because, as you know, Jesus came not to be served but to serve, so she was Christ-like in the truest sense, like she served people for a living. And then on Sunday mornings, her catharsis was, man, that Holy Ghost filled church on Lauderdale Avenue here in Memphis. And she would get in the spirit and run around that church, man. And, you know, so yes, there are Whalums and sing gospel, of course. I meant to mention that she was a gospel singer. So yeah, I mean, I can't claim too much of anything except to say that I try to screw up the legacy too badly, you know.
Well, I guess we could say without doubt that you've got great genes, and that was something I'm going to talk about a little bit too. But Kirk, so that our international viewers understand the music culture of your city of birth, Memphis is recognized as the home of the blues, as well as rock and roll, jazz, soul, gospel, and rap music. Now, we're going to touch on a few things you've said, just to kind of reiterate a little bit, but now, your father was a minister, so we know singing in your father's church choir was a given. You also developed a love for music from your grandmother, Thelma Twig Whalum, the piano teacher you were alluding to. We've already talked about your two uncles, Wendell and Hugh Peanuts Whalum, both of whom played in jazz bands, played all over the United States. Now, what I love about your story is that by the time you reached Melrose High School, and folks, that's obviously in Memphis, the band director, I was in the band, played clarinet and bassoon, so I relate.
Yeah.
But by the time you reached Melrose High School, the band director asked you if you would like to be in the jazz band. But being a big fan of Jimi Hendrix and Grand Funk Railroad and the Jackson Five, being the gentleman that you are, you politely said, no, sir. The band director responded, let me put that another way. You will be in the jazz band. Now, as a consequence, jazz music literally blew you away. You love the incredible sound and its spontaneity, and you love the freedom and the challenge of expressing yourself through the music. Now, you continue your jazz studies at Texas Southern University, where you received a scholarship, and you are a member of the renowned Ocean of Soul Marching Band. Now, I was in the marching band in high school. And someone said to me recently, if your high school or college marching band didn't play the horse, it wasn't a marching band. So my first question for you, and this is the most important question of the entire interview, did the TSU Ocean of Soul Marching Band play the horse?
That's funny. Okay, so no, we didn't. And no, but I think you have to like put, you know, it's hard to divorce, you know, this marching band culture of you know, an HBCU, historically Black college university, from the sort of stream of amazing music that, you know, the world knows as Black music, Black American music in particular. And yeah, I mean, there was so much going on. I mean, first of all, I'd say that few of the colleges had excellent football teams, right? HBCUs. Not okay, ours was okay, but they all had great marching bands.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you know, the show, it wasn't over there playing, but it was a show. And so the, you know, the guys on the football team, you know, when they would get through at their practice, they'd be saying like, man, they see us still out there. They're like, man, I'm glad I'm not in the band, you know, because it's like,
talk about working.
Yeah, you know, you think we're tired, you know, and there was a whole high stepping thing, and there was the fast step part of we did, and it was all done to amazing soundtracks that we would play. We had the best arrangers who would do, you know, arrangements of whatever was current.
Right.
And so, and if you didn't bring, you had to bring it because Southern University and or you know, Mississippi Valley State, one of these other HBCUs was going to kill you on, you know, on halftime. So you had to come with the current hits. And so we didn't play the horse, but we had so much awesome music, and it was such a learning experience, man. It's just a beautiful, beautiful experience. And Bob,
on a more
I'll
Go
fix
ahead.
that quote by this way. My high school band director said, and I quote, "You are now in the jazz man."
But what a turning point for you, though, and what a revelation. But on a more serious question, in a 1994 profile for Ebony Man magazine, you told John H. Johnson, and I quote, "The music I like to play and write encompasses the four elements I grew up with: Memphis R&B, gospel, rock, and jazz. The emphasis, though, is on melody, period." If you would explain to our viewers what you meant by saying you focus on predominantly on melody.
Right. So to this day, I believe that God speaks the language of melody. That when people talk about, man, I heard God speak, or God spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you press them hard enough, they'll admit that, maybe I didn't hear him speak. Like I heard myself say something in my head, but I feel like it was inspired by God.
Absolutely.
I truly believe that there's a mode of communication that it supersedes, it's higher, it's on a higher plane than words. I speak Spanish, I speak French, and I speak just skoshi, Nihongo, like just a little bit Japanese. But I got to tell you, all of that pales when it comes to a melody connecting with a person's heart. And so for me, like, just go ahead and go for the jugular. If when I teach, we have something called the Sax Loft, the saxloft.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there's three great teachers: Tia Fuller, Jeff Coffin, and myself. But when two great teachers and me. But when I taught these kids, they want to pick apart some lick, some kind of phrase or whatever, and I go, that's nothing, man. I mean, what is about is you have to constantly be creating melodies while you're improvising. That's all improvising is. It's just melody after melody. And so you have to download those melodies from somewhere because you need them ex nihilo, like you need them, extemporaneously. You need them in the moment.
Exactly.
Right. So that to me is what how important melody is.
Excellent. Okay, moving on then. Okay, so you've recorded a series of well-received solo albums as well as film soundtracks, ranging from pop to R&B, smooth jazz. Your musical accomplishments have brought you a total of, ready for this, 12 Grammy nominations. You won your first Grammy nomination award in 2011 for the Best Gospel Song, and it's What I Do, featuring the fabulous Lala Hathaway and alongside your lifelong friend, Jerry Peters. So, Kirk, could you tell our followers more about your first Grammy Award? I mean, what an amazing accomplishment to get that. There you are. And also with your lifelong friend, Jerry Peters, please.
Oh, wow. So people who may not recognize the name Jerry Peters right offhand, they know him because he wrote a song called You Got Me Going in Circles. Mm-hmm. And so that is kind of like a calling card, when it comes to composition. But I met him when I was 13. He was, on an assignment for the great Jerry Butler, who had just started a label here in Memphis. And as kids, we wanted to all be the Jackson 5. So that's how I met Jerry. And, I got to tell you, Jerry has become arguably my closest friend. I mean, the fact that we won a Grammy together, it makes sense to me now because we just so naturally feed into each other's creativity. But yeah, the song Is What I Do was absolutely, I'm going to say it was serendipitous to win a Grammy because it won Best Gospel Song of the Year. Now, when you think of a gospel song, you don't think of Billie Holiday, and so the song I wrote for Layla Hathaway to sing was basically Billie Holiday, upright bass, acoustic piano, brushes on the drums, and just the whole vibe of a jazz club. But the message was saying, God is saying to us, don't break your brain, your little brain trying to, reptilian brain trying to figure out why I love you so much. He said, it's because you're mine, because you're you, because I'm love. I'm literally love. It's what I do. It's just all I do, And so that message apparently was meant to get out because, I mean, I still to this day, I go, I don't think I really deserve that Grammy because it's in the category of some of the great gospel songs of history.
Well, Kirk, I love Layla Hathaway, and some of our viewers may not realize that she's the daughter of the legendary Grammy-winning soul singer Donny Hathaway, one of my favorites. Additionally, you recorded a 2010 tribute project to her dad titled Everything is Everything, the music of Donny Hathaway. Now, for me, I thought it was very fitting that you would get your first Grammy in the gospel category with Best Gospel Song, given that you also have received nominations in the categories of pop music and also jazz. So I love that you broke the ice with a gospel song. Gospel music, like all other genres, is evolving. I would just like to think you were a little ahead of your time. So there's another story, though, that really struck a chord with me, and I want you to take a few seconds to share with our viewers the story regarding your friend and a fellow saxophonist who was scheduled to perform the first piece of music to be recorded in space. It's not an easy subject to talk about. It's very moving. The whole incident, I cannot begin to tell you how much it disturbed me. But tell us about the tragic day of January 28, 1986, and about your friend Ron McNair.
Wow, so that's incredible. That man, you must have been under spelunking to get that bit of information. You know that I was even a part of that. But thank you, and you're right, man. It's just, you know, things happen that are beyond our comprehension. You know,
one day we'll understand.
That the old folks and my dad, Reverend Kenneth E. Whalum's church used to sing, "We'll understand it better by and by," and that's just, you know, that's my hope, because man, I tell you, I mean, this guy was the penultimate incredible human being with incredible wife and kids, black belt in karate. He was a very faith-filled man. He had 2 master's degrees. He operated the laser arm. I mean, just on, and he played the freaking saxophone. I was angry when I found out that he played the sax. I'm like, really?
As if that, yes. If look, kids, there's nothing left you can't do, you know.
And by the way, we had a funny a joke between us. When I met him, I was playing at this very popular club in Houston called Cody's, and people who lived in Houston in the '80s know about that club. And he, you know, I remember him coming up to me saying, you know, "I'm Ron McNair. I do blah blah blah, and I also play saxophone. I'd love to, you know, get a lesson or hang out, or whatever." And then maybe a couple months later, again, keep in mind, this club was banging, man. Every night I'm meeting, you know, 100 people. He came up to me and said, "Hey, man, good to see you again. I've been, you know, working real hard." Little did I know what he was working on. And he said, "Yeah, I haven't been able to come." I said, "No, I remember meeting you, man. Aren't you a flight attendant?"
No.
To this day, man. I mean, to this day, I just am so embarrassed about that. But
he said, "Well, yeah, actually, I do fly, but I have a PhD in physics and I'm an astronaut. But yeah, so I do fly.
I do attend to the experiments that we're doing out of space."
Right.
I was just,
Oh my gosh.
I'm, you know, because again, the idea is to be a good host, and that's not something, you know, by the way, a lot of these young artists who come along on YouTube, blah blah, like, they don't have any chops at that because they haven't made those kinds of mistakes, you know.
Right.
A lot of them don't have, you know, the sort of 10 years playing in little clubs. But yeah, that hurt. And man, you know what? His wife, Cheryl, was just an angel. And when she, you know, when it all came down, she contacted me. She said, "I want you to play this part for him." Program. And it was a big celebration. Jean-Michel Jarre, the big French artist, came over to Houston to do.
Okay, what we're going to do now, I mean, we could just talk all night long. This is amazing. We're going to momentarily just break to play a track of yours. It's from your fabulous album, your Manatee. Okay, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. We're going to play the Everyone Ought to Be Free. We'll be back with the wonderful Kirk Whalum any couple of minutes. And I want to come back and talk about some of these great things we've just drip-feed in there. Back in a second. Stay with us.
Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Oh yeah. Everybody just ought Everybody just ought to be free.
Why do we need a reason for sharing, forgiving? Isn't that what love was made for? I really thought that it was made for giving. It's really not a blessing, you see, when the cost of your blessing was free. But you forgot to come rescue me. I guess it wasn't my season. Too many people on the outside and just a few people on the top side. All of my blessing went to the 1%. Now they must repent and do right. Love's in need of love and grace, food to eat in their very own space. Let all the children come to me, and I declare that they will be free.
Everybody just ought to be
They ought to be free.
Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free.
That they ought to be free.
Everybody just ought to be free.
Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free. Everybody just ought to be free.
Wow, I just love that
Mm.
track. I love the whole album. It is like, I mean, there's a whole, you got to buy the entire collection. That particular album is fabulous. It's Humanity. Fabulous, fabulous. Now, in the 1980s, you highlighted your stepping and blossoming sideman role, and you turned yourself attention to start your own band. It was there ultimately developing your own style, your own voice and songwriting, especially in the rooftop club called Cody's. And it was in Houston, in Texas, that a certain jazz pianist, a former guest here on Jazz Across the Pond, Mr. Bob James, came across you. Now, please tell us more about that. Talk about a sliding doors moment. There's Mr. Bob James. Please allude to that, sir.
What a great story. And by the way, I was a huge fan of his, not to mention that he wrote the music to Taxi, right? But the idea of getting to meet him, there was a guy named Otha Carpenter, who was a promoter from Memphis, who lived in Houston, who made that happen. I always mention his name because without him, I may not have gotten this big opportunity. But, the idea of opening a concert for him was big enough. I said, there's no way I'll get to meet the guy. I know they do their sound check and then they're gone, right? So this guy Otha was way ahead of me. He said, I'm gonna cater. He didn't tell me, but he did it. He catered the sound check with Texas barbecue, and so guys were stuck there because they weren't budging. They were stuffing their faces while we did sound check. And when we played, apparently Bob was like, "They're on this show too." I don't know if I like that idea, And he said, when the show came along, he said, I had a bad feeling about it, just way ahead of the show. And sure enough, you know, we had milked this audience for months on end in that little club. But you come across a lot of people that way. And sure enough, man, the audience that showed up for that concert, they were all fans of ours, and they went nuts. And Bob said the audience peaked before he ever got to the stage.
Right.
He said, I knew right away how to never have that happen again.
Amazing.
I'll hire him.
As I was saying, Bob James was a guest a few months ago, and we've been trying for a few months and that, and eventually his manager said, okay, you can have, and he was in his penthouse suite in San Francisco just prior to going and doing a show with David Sanborn, the rest of it. And it was, there he was. We both, Kevin and myself, were chatting to him, and he was at 83. His stories were incredible. That's another great show, well worth watching. Kevin, over to you, sir.
Yeah, Kirk, like yourself, I'm a big Bob James fan. I jumped on board back with his third project and have been riding that train since then. As a matter of fact, it was 12 is when I heard you for the first time. And so I kind of had my own Bob James moment hearing you and wondering, who is that? Looking at the liner notes and everything. So Mr. Bob James did me a great favor by introducing me to yourself. So I was real pleased with that. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Kirk, your father was a strong Baptist minister and a community leader. He was also a very powerful inspiration in your life. There was an interview you did. I recall you mentioning that your dad loved those early morning gatherings at the church. He would actually go in and jump in the kitchen and help prepare that morning meal. It was how your father reached out and touched the lives of his flock. And I know you're a minister as well. One of the many ways that he showed his love for, and you stole my quote, I was going to say, for he was born into that life to serve and not be served. And he taught and led by example. But Kirk, if we look at all of the threads of your life, they've been woven into an amazing tapestry. You've had many things to be thankful for: your family, your music career, your relationships with your peers, your church family as an ordained minister, your students as an educator, your health, and your creativity. Of all the threads in your life, what has been, I know the answer. Of all the threads in your life, what has been the common thread that holds it all together?
Yeah, that would be a softball, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, but let me just elaborate a little and say that, yes, I am a minister, but I don't have a flock. I'm not a pastor or shepherd, right? I just consider the opportunities that I have to share my music. I take that just a little bit further and share a little bit of my faith tradition and my own journey. And I've grown a lot, I've evolved a lot in my faith. But just to say that my dad setting that standard, it's where I've ended up now at 64 today. And that is that, that service piece is a lot bigger than we know, because what it's been in recent decades is about doctrine and dogma. Well, so orthodoxy and opposed to orthopraxy. Like, what do you believe? And that belief is what gets you to heaven or not. So let's junk that idea, because there are people who are intellectually challenged. There are people who can't believe the right thing or whatever. God loves them maybe more than he loves you. So to me, it is absolutely the thread that that ties my life together is serving God through serving people. Like,
right,
hair for homeless and poor guys. And I always say, what a privilege it is to give God a haircut.
Yeah, you actually give haircuts at that center for the homeless and the poor.
Yes,
you've actually been a barber there.
That's what I do. That's what I was doing today, and that's what I'll be doing this Thursday. But only when I'm in town. But the idea is that we are every human being, not just Christians or not just Jewish people, whatever, all created in the image of the divine. And so
Right.
we say, well, who is that who's about to come sit in your chair? That's God. And so you get to serve God. And to me, that's what, and my dad set the tone by scrambling eggs and frying bacon for his people.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Okay. At the beginning of the interview, right at the top end, you surprised Kevin and myself and, dare say, hundreds of thousands of followers with your wonderful story about the Whitney Houston and the I Will Always Love You, a song, of course, written by Dolly Parton, which a lot of people don't realize that. Okay. Now, in the wonderful book, it's David Foster, The Hitman. It's a great, great, great book. And there's an article there about, of course, Kevin Costner actually went to David Foster and said, you know, and came up with the idea of the song. And David Foster went, right. And he went through the entire piece and that, but he wanted that break at the end where people think the song's going to finish and suddenly it comes back with a bang. And it's like, well, and that was written, and Kevin Costner initially wasn't very keen on that actual drop in the music and that, but it was so right for the song and also for the film and that. So please, I'm going to allow you to tell us a bit more about that fabulous song and just elaborate on it, please.
You got it. Well, first of all, I'll say that I also played with Dolly Parton. So let me just mention that. And the other thing is she is awesome. The other thing really is that big moment that happens in I Will Always Love You, it is preceded by one big drum fill. And we call it the one note $1 million drum fill. And that was by Ricky Lawson. Yep. Ricky Lawson passed.
Really great. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the greats. And he was one of my dearest friends and in a big way responsible for a lot of the doors that opened for me when I moved to Los Angeles and started doing sessions in the LA, studio scene. But so boom, and in the modulation, all of that stuff. People have to remember that happened. It happened live. Like, people don't even think. When they hear somebody singing in a movie, Julie Andrews, whatever, like, oh, is she great? She sang. No, she didn't. She sang in the studio weeks after they were done, actually filming, and she overdubbed or she lip synced. Whitney sang that song. And by the way, for people who may not know, we probably did 3 takes. The first take is the one that is the record. Not only that, we were there. You can't see us, but if you look at the movie, there's a curtain. We're right behind that curtain, okay? Because of course you have to separate the sound, and I say curtain, probably 2 or 3 curtains to try to separate the sound from the band, drums and all, from her voice, because they had to treat her voice, with certain effects. But here's the thing: is that, man, in the moment, she actually, like this. Clive Davis, president of the record company, they hand him a digital audio tape of that performance, right? All 3 takes or whatever. But remember, the digital audio tape is, basically a cassette. This is the rough mix, right? And you guys know what a rough mix is. It's not by any means the final record, because you haven't stripped apart the multi-track tape and you treat the EQ, the kick drum, and then the snare and blah, blah, blah. Add this, take that out, fix this. None of that happened because Clive Davis told David Foster, with all due respect,
don't have to.
This is what's gonna happen. What you just played for me is the record. No, and David exactly thought he was a kid. He's like, oh, you mean, yeah, it is great, isn't it? He's like, no. This is it. You're not gonna touch it. What you hear in history books.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's absolutely crazy. That's an incredible moment to hear that. So, but, well, Kirk, I did have one other thing that I know we're conscious of the time. In 2005, you released your Project Babyface songbook featuring the R&B icons, best songs of the prior 15 years at that point, including Exhale, Shoop Shoop, and I'll Make Love to You, and When Can I See You, just to mention a few. Babyface songbook featured trumpeters Rick Braun, of course, Dave Cause on sax, Norman Brown, Chuck Loeb, a lot of our good friends, Miss Chuck. In 2005, you also performed a cover of Any Love on the exceptionally curated project produced by Rex Rideout and Bud Herner, a gentleman we're in conversations with at the moment, entitled Forever for Always for Luther, which featured another stellar list of musicians. What I wanted to ask you, though, was explain to our viewers, what is it about tribute projects that strike such a deep chord with you?
Right. I mean, I will say this, for all, in all candor, that it wasn't always something I wanted to do. I think you talk to any artist with any history or, in any, long-term career, that there are things that you wanted to do that they didn't want to do, and, that you should have done. There are things you wanted to do that you probably it's good that you didn't do them,
Right.
Others, like for instance, I did a record, a kind of country soul record called In This Life. It got me kicked off of Columbia Records. They were like, what is this guy doing? And then I fast forward, I go to South Africa, and that record is ubiquitous. I mean, I could not play a concert without playing something from that record. I had to learn something from that record the day of the concert, not realizing how big that record was over there, the one that got me kicked off. But at any rate, what was the question?
The question was just that for a lot of people, they don't consider doing tribute projects at all because it's so much about themselves.
Yeah.
For you, it's something altogether different. It's
right.
sort of paying it back.
It's basically like, Mission Impossible. They hand you an envelope, and they say this, should you accept it, and a lot of times you don't want to accept it. Right. And in this case, producer has a wet dream about, I remember, Bill Withers being told, what you should do, man, you should do covers of Paul, the Beatles, whatever,
Funny.
Yeah, McCartney. And Bill Withers is like, are we in the same universe? I'm Bill freaking Withers. What are you talking about? Anyway, yes, the idea of doing covers, it has to be right. I mean, I did a record called Love Covers, #Love Covers.
Oh yeah, great project.
Man, and that is actually covers of gospel songs. But of course, it refers to a scripture that love covers a multitude of sin. But doing covers it's got to mean something to you. And so when it was brought to me, Donny Hathaway, Babyface, these are artists who I truly, truly admire, and they give you a lot of melodic gold to just the heart-warming melody. So it wasn't hard to say yes.
Amazing. Now, conscious aware of time, we've mentioned Bob James. There is a wonderful, wonderful album, you and him. It is an incredible, we feature it both on our respective shows. It's Joined at the Hip, a brilliant, if you're a jazz fan, go out and buy that one. It is a brilliant album. But
the original and the remastered.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But along with that, after moving to Los Angeles, you've become a much top session man in demand. Let me just very, very briefly, just for example, these are the top artists that are waiting for you and they're ringing you. They're going, Barbra Streisand, the late Al Jarreau, the late Luther Vandross, Larry Carlton, Quincy Jones, and of course, Whitney Houston. And the names go on and on. You are a very, very much in demand man. And this is why we're so grateful you took time out to come and talk to us on our show tonight. So where can our followers purchase and buy your music, sir?
Thank you. I got to mention a couple of artists that you left out, but you're from the UK. You would know Everything But the Girl and Go West. So those are two artists that are on this list of sessions that I did, especially during the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
So people, first of all, I would love for people to see the movie that we did called Humanité, which is about me going to 7 other countries and doing collaborations with young artists in Indonesia, Japan, France, Kenya, South Africa, etc. Humanité, and you could just go to my website, or it's available on many of the streaming platforms. The documentary, Humanité, the Beloved Community. But yeah, I mean, that is, thank you.
Great project.
Yes, sir. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, it really is wonderful to have had an opportunity to do a lot of recording with other people. It's always still kind of, you want to try to stay focused on your own stuff, but it's wonderful to be called to join and collaborate with other artists.
Now, before we finish, we are definitely going to mention BWB. The evening would not be complete without mentioning BWB. Now, before everyone's looking, going, what's Roger going on about it? BWB is a collection of wonderful albums, absolutely fabulous albums, featuring yourself, Rick Braun, and Norman Brown, and they are fabulous albums.
Especially the self-titled one is
that's brilliant.
Thank you very much for that. But yeah, especially because we wrote all the songs on that one. The first two we just did covers. We're just having fun, no brainer. But man, we sat down and wrote songs together on this last one, and really, really,
that's brilliant. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, again, well worth adding to any one of your collection. They are just absolutely brilliant. And if you're a fan of these three very talented gentlemen. Kevin, a last one from yourself, sir.
Yeah, real quick. Kirk said he wasn't going to blow his horn. Well, I'm going to blow it anyway. So in June of 2014, Mr. Whalum received the honor of becoming the first inductee as a jazz legend at the National Museum of African American Music in Nashville, Tennessee. In September 2015, Mr. Whalum joined the faculty of the Visible Music College in Memphis. And then thirdly, in September of 2018, Kirk received the honor of a coveted brass note on the nationally historic Beale Street in his beloved Memphis, Tennessee. Kirk, my family's from Tennessee, so we're very proud of you and your family. My people grew up in a little town called Deckard in Southwest Tennessee. I think it's got one stoplight. But thank you, listen, so much for joining us today. I know we're running out of time, but bless you and keep up the good work. And thank you for being with us today.
Oh, what a pleasure, man. I'm so glad you guys allow me to be in this long list of really historic and honorific artists. So thank you so much.
Kirk, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to further albums of yours and tours. We certainly do. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Kevin and myself, Mr. G, myself and Jessica, take care. Look after yourself in this crazy world we live in. Bye-bye.